Hey, what's up you guys? This is Becky with Thankful Roots at HEIRLOOM, and I'm at my greenhouse today. We're going to be talking about tomatoes. Now, I feel like tomatoes are seriously like the gateway drug to gardening because everybody always wants their own homegrown tomatoes. If you have ever ate a homegrown tomato, you can taste the difference. You know that it's a little bit better. You know that it's not like that store-bought. It's juicier. It's more full of flavor. It's better. And so I think that that's always what people get started. Even if you're in an apartment with just a balcony and you don't have any space, you still get that pot and you're like, I'm going to grow myself some tomatoes. And so it's the gateway into wanting to grow more, have a big garden and things like that. But I feel like it can kind of be confusing. I feel like gardening can be overwhelming. I don't think people talk about that too much. That, you know, it's always that gardening is so peaceful, which it is, and it's so rewarding, which it is. But to get going, it can be overwhelming because you just think, well, what do I do? Where do I start? Which one do I want? There's so many options, so many labels, so many things. It's like, what is the right choice? And so today I wanted to break down with you guys what we want out of our tomatoes, what kind of tomatoes we're going to be picking, and pretty much just going from there with getting our seeds started. By the way, I just wanted y'all to know that my shirt says Dolly Parton is my fairy godmother. I always hate when I'm watching something and I can't read what the person's shirt says, so that's what it says. It's Dolly Parton is my fairy godmother because Dolly is my homegirl. I love her very much. I'm also out in the greenhouse kind of early in the morning, and so condensation is dropping like bombs all around me. So if you see things falling, it's just slightly raining in here. It's no big deal. I'm not made of sugar, so I'm not going to melt. It'll be fine. So I just want to let y'all know, just in case that you see like just a random something falling. That's what it is, condensation in the greenhouse. So the very first thing I want to talk about is, what do you want out of your tomatoes? And that may seem like a silly question, but there's actually a lot of purposes, a lot of functions, reasons that you want to grow tomatoes and what their use and their function is going to be. So for us, we use tons of diced tomatoes, spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, tomato juice. We use tons of that. And so our main key goal out of our garden of growing tomatoes is to be able to produce those things. Those are our very, very first most important things, and salsa. So on my list, the very first thing that I wanted to be sure that I got was the type of tomato that was good for those things. Now the next, we like throwing little like cherry tomatoes into salads, just eating them. You know, it's like some garden snacks while you're out there, gives you something to munch on. And plus, we plan on doing the farmer's market, and we know that those are always a favorite there. And so we bought some cherry tomatoes next as our second priority. Now, for tomatoes that you just cut up and eat and you put them on your burgers, or you know, you eat them with your meal, those are important to us. However, that's not at the top of the list. So growing like beefsteak, you know, just those large slicing tomatoes weren't that high on our priority list. Now that might be the reason that you're growing tomatoes, is because you want to just be able to have a stash of fresh eaten tomatoes, serve it with your food, put it on your burger, in your salad, whatever it is that you want to do with it. So there are different purposes, there are different functions of each type of tomato, as well as the color. Then you get into color, you get the really deep, like dark, almost purple black types. Those are so sweet and savory. Like they're almost like a smoky flavor to them. They just have a different. And as you go lighter down the scale into your green and your yellow, they get to be a little bit more acidic, a little bit tart. And so it's just a, you know, it's just a taste preference, whatever it is that you prefer, what color, what function, what you want. That's where you need to be starting of, well, you know, my goal is to can tomatoes. So what kind of tomatoes do I need for that? That is what you need to be focusing on when you're trying to decide what kind of tomatoes, because there'd be nothing worse than putting all this hard work into your garden, into your tomatoes, going to make some delicious salsa and realizing that you're trying to use cherry tomatoes. It's going to be harder for you. So let's get into what we have and why we're doing it. So I'm sorry if you already know these like basic vocabulary things, but I really quickly want to go over what indeterminate, determinate, open pollinated means. For a better look into open pollinated, you might want to watch why we chose heirloom seeds video. It kind of explains it a little bit better there. I'm going to try to do it really quickly. But I just remember being a first-ish time gardener. The only experience I'd ever had was watching my parents and grandparents. I didn't really ever care that much about the garden as a teenager. It seemed like way too much work to me. I was just like, whatever, I got better things to do. And so thankfully as an adult, I've come around. And so I've had to kind of try to play catch up, get it? Tomatoes. So I really had to learn what all the labels and, you know, the types and all that stuff meant. So I'm going to break it down real quick. Indeterminate tomatoes mean that they will grow as big as you and the good Lord will allow. Basically, it'll grow as tall and as big as you will let it. Often picking these can be helpful, but then also it will just make it produce even more. Indeterminates are really good to be used to like trellis and climb. Any type of stake that you can have, or even taking like a cattle panel or some wire or whatever it is that you have and making like a trellis of it, and then let them grow up both sides. That's easier for you. It won't be so backbreaking as they grow. You can pick them. It works well that way because then you can train them on how big you want them, where you want them. Determinate is usually best for like planting in a pot, and keeping that way just means that there's a certain size. They will only get so big. It's already determined how big they're going to get. So if you are balcony planting, if you don't have that much space, you might really want to look for a determinate tomato, because that's going to really help you and not turn your balcony into like a jungle. So that's something that you want to look into. Now, all of our heirloom seeds are open pollinated, and what it means is that they are naturally pollinated by its surroundings. So if you plant two open pollinated tomatoes next to each other, their fruit is going to be true to whatever that envelope said that it was going to be. But say you take that tomato and you want to save those seeds. Now that baby tomato, these are the parents, that baby tomato, that fruit that was produced, it has a little bit of traits of both of these things. So when you save those seeds and plant them and you think, well, I got this off of, it was the Roma tomato, that's what it's going to be. But then you save those seeds and you plant them, and say it was next to a cherry. I don't know what I had up here as an example. I had an Amish paste tomato. But say it was next to a cherry. You go and plant it saying, I'm going to have another Roma tomato, and then out pop these cherry tomatoes, because it took that side of its inherited traits. So when you save seeds like that, you may not always know what you're going to get. So I haven't decided what we're going to do yet, because we are going to be growing a couple tomatoes in the same garden. We have 3 different garden plots that we're going to be working off of this year. So I'm hoping I can spread them out well enough. I'm hoping to save the seeds. I might end up having to buy some more seeds the next year, but the good thing is a lot of my other plants and my other seeds, I don't have to worry about it so much. Tomatoes are kind of the most tricky. So open pollinated is great though, because that's a part of the heirloom seeds. Again, check out that video if you haven't. That basically you can save them. It's gone for generations and generations, and it's naturally been selected to be the greatest, the juiciest, the best fruit, the best produce out of that batch. So let's get going. So the very first high up on our priority list, like I said, was being able to make diced tomatoes, salsa, tomato sauce, pizza sauce, tomato juice, spaghetti sauce, all those types of things. So the tomato that we needed for that was a Roma or a paste type of tomato. Now these typically have a shape to them. They will most typically be kind of ox heart shaped. This is the Baker Creek Martino's Roma. This is a Roma. This one's a Roma. You can see it's just a little bit more ovalish. It's not that pretty plump round. It really won't have that many creases in it. Like, say, this one is a Hillbilly tomato. This one is good for slicing. So it's really not going to have them divots, the creases in them. I know that there's a real word for that, but I'm not sure what it is. So they're going to be kind of sort of plum, ox heart, oval shaped. And there's a couple options. Now, my first pick was the Amish paste tomato. I found this one through Seed Savers. Tons of different companies have it. They'll usually be bright red, which is good because that's the acidic level that we want. It'll be, the flesh has really juicy, meaty, and they're great for sauce and fresh eating. So a lot of these also have sort of like, two functions. So the Black Prince tomato from M.I. Gardner, this one definitely was for 2014, 15, and 17, it was voted the best tasting tomato. And so it says that it's delicious dried, but also makes awesome tomato paste. So as you can see, it doesn't always have that typical shape to it, but this one has a different flavor to it. So like for making diced tomatoes, I think that this one is going to be my pick. However, when I'm making salsa, things that I really need to boil down and like squeeze the juices and the flesh out of it, these ones are going to be my choice. So we are going to be planting the Romas and the Amish paste to make our sauces and things like that. Now I also have a different type of Roma. This one came from Ohio Heirloom seeds, but it didn't have a picture on it. Doesn't make it any less, but I really wanted these ones to show you guys the great visual. But this one, so the VFN, it is resistant to, the VFN stands for the verticillum wilt, fusarium wilt, and nematodes. And so this one is supposed to be just a little bit hardier. Like I said, it's not a hybrid. It's never been genetically modified. It's never, bioengineered at all. This has just been chosen by someone, by people, for years and years and years so that it would be better resistant to these type of things. And so I thought that it was really cool, but this one is actually a determinate. So it is only going to grow so much. So I don't want to be super dependent on this one and say, well, all my sauce is going to come from it, because these plants may not grow that super big because they are already determinate. So it does say that it makes huge yields, but a lot of tomatoes do, friends. Like truly, you get, as long as you get a good healthy plant, you have it really well fertilized, you've got it going and healthy, you're going to get a good batch off of it. And so last year we planted at my mother-in-law's garden. We had made salsa, we had big plans for all these other things, and we actually ended up with way too many tomatoes, and we had so many left over, and so we had to, we were finding uses for them. But you'd be surprised how much tomatoes you can actually get off of it. So I think that these are my 4 that I'm going to be planting. Like I said, I have 3 different garden spots, so we're going to try to space them out so that way they're not too heavily influenced by one another. But these are going, this is my A-team for making my sauces, salsa, juices, things like that. So our second priority was our garden snacks, which are the little tiny cherry baby tomatoes. We have a couple of different varieties, some fun ones. I wasn't super worried about this one because one makes a lot, and it's a lot more than we can eat. So anything else extra that we have, I plan on selling at the farmer's market, giving to friends, just being able to share it. So as soon as I saw these, my eyes lit up. These are tomato tomatoes. You can see that they kind of, vary with the green to red. It just depends on when you pick them at their maturity. But this was my granny's absolute favorite tomato. I remember, now I've told y'all that I'm a recovering picky eater. I'm coming around and liking tomatoes. But when I was little, every year my granny would give me one of these and tell me to take a big bite. And she'd be like, oh, Becky, these are just the best things since, buttered bread. And I would take a bite and be like, oh, Granny, what are you doing to me? And so what I wouldn't do to have some more of these and try them with her again. So this year I'm planting these for Granny. She's not here anymore, but when I saw them, my eyes lit up, and I knew that I just had to have tomato tomatoes. They make huge yields. They're really awesome flavored. These are actually a huge favorite in Australia, which I think is really funny because it's like their big thing over there. And when my granny, just a simple mountain lady from eastern Kentucky, had been growing these for like 80 years. And so it's just funny to me to think that this is like all the rage somewhere else. So they are sensitive to freezing, and so you always want to make sure that you transplant them when it's warm. You don't worry about frosting. And just a good basic little tiny cherry tomato. Another one that I am the most excited about is I really like a sweet, smoky flavor in my tomatoes, which makes me like a little bit more of the darker varieties. I really like, like the purple, the deeper ones. And so this one is the black cherry tomato. And I'm so excited to try this one. It has an awesome sweet flavor. It has a really low acidic. It's not super tangy. They're usually about 1 ounce, and you can get several pounds of yield of produce out of one plant. So these will be high, a high yield. And I also thought that they would be good to bring to the market and to friends who are like me and just don't like super tangy tomatoes. They like these deep, sweet flavors. So they're good for munching. I'm excited to get planting them. It says that if you allow the tomatoes to ripen on the vine, you will see their skin start to turn from dull to glossy when ready to harvest. So that's really cool. Each time you get one, make sure that you read the label. If it does come blank, sometimes they do. What I ended up doing is like all these ones from Ohio Heirloom Seeds actually came blank, so what I did was I got on their website, I looked up their growing instructions, what they said, and I also looked it up on Baker Creek in their catalog. If they had the same tomato, I looked up what Baker Creek had to say about it, maybe any type of tips, what it's good for, its good uses, things like that. And I just wrote it on there myself. So sometimes, friends, you gotta do the work. That's alright. And this one, oh, these are part of my Belgiums. Hold on. So I also got the Chadwick Cherry. They are a little bit bigger. Um, they are really good at being disease resistant. So again, I always felt like it's good to have always one that you already know that's been naturally selected over generations that's a little bit more resistant than maybe um, the one that you want. So these can always come in clutch just in case your produce, just in case your plant gets, overtaken by wilt or bugs or something happens to it, you always have plan B. Then I just wanted to show you guys these. These are basically the show pony, and that's exactly why I'm growing them. They come from Wild Boar Farms. They're crack-resistant cherries in totally wild Technicolor shades and stripes. Extraordinarily sweet, just amazing. It says the olive green interior is blushed with red when dead ripe. So these are a little bit more like green tomatoes. I think that means they're going to be a little bit sweet and tangy. I'm excited to try them. I'm excited to bring them to the farmer's market. There's something different. And these won the 2017 Best in Show at the National Heirloom Expo. These are just a big deal, and so of course I had to get my hands on some. Totally interesting colors. I like that. I like having something a little bit different. These are my show pony tomatoes. So like I said, these are just for munching, salads, eating, giving, sharing. That's what we want out of these. Okay, so our next priority was like the beefsteak Belgium type tomatoes, which are good for just plain old eating and slicing, good for sandwiches, that type of thing. So these are usually this is the only one that I really have a picture of. Like I said, they weren't that high on our priority. We wanted them, but we really, more than anything, wanted to be able to fill our pantry to last us through the winter, to make those canned things that I showed you with the Roma and paste type tomatoes. So these ones, I've been reading how you can save tomatoes by storing them in ash, and then I know that there's some risks to it, as well as, it's just like a certain way that you need to do it. Because I always picture these tomatoes as being a couple month thing and then you're done with them, and it kind of stinks, to have them just for a minute. I really like stuff that I can fill my pantry and enjoy my garden all year round. So now that I'm learning that you can store these, I'm going to read more about it and figure out if that's something that we'll be interested in doing. However, like I said, we just didn't need that many slicing regular tomatoes. So I got these Hillbilly tomatoes because they are bicolored. Got them from M.I. Gardner, and they are indeterminate. They can grow really massive. They're one of the largest varieties in the garden, typically just big, big old tomatoes. And so they're really sweet, and then they're beautiful when sliced. It's marbled. It's really pretty all throughout it, and these are delicious on sandwiches and burgers. And so the other ones that I got a Cherokee purple tomato because, like I told you guys, I like the darker, the little bit sweeter, smokier type. I'm not crazy about the tart, acidic tomatoes. And so I got these ones. I told y'all that I just wrote on them. This one is, you know, it needs to be staked. A lot of these do because they grow so big. You really need to have something sturdy for them to grow on so that they can really grow to their true full potential. So I got the purple ones. I got some giant Belgiums. They also are typically shaped like this, but they're just a little bit deeper of a red. They produce large quantities. They're sweet, meaty, dark pink equals mature. So once they're like that really dark pink, that means that they're ready to be picked. And they're low acidic, excellent for salads, sandwiches, and oh, I forgot I wrote this interesting fact on here. It says their pink skin is due to clear skin over the red flesh, while most tomatoes are yellow skinned over red flesh. And so I just thought that that was interesting that it's actually like a different color of skin around it. So these are indeterminate. They're going to grow big. A lot of these types are. And lastly, I have the mortgage lifter tomatoes. These are just a popular, common, basic tomato to grow. They were so good that one man paid off a $6,000 mortgage in 6 years just by selling them for $1 a piece. And he crossed them. It was developed in Logan, West Virginia in the early 30s by Radiator Charlie. He crossed four, which was the German Johnson, a beefsteak, an Italian variety, and an English variety. And he got these fellers, and he, you know, continued to do that every year. Pick them, naturally select them until that they were just awesome. These are great for slicing. These are like those beautiful tomatoes. When you think of that round, pretty, I want to cut that up and eat it tomato, this is what you imagine. So I hope this helps. I hope you don't just go by what I'm saying because this is what's working for us. I hope you try to decide, really break it down first. Well, what is the purpose I want my tomatoes to serve? And then from there, decide, you know what, I really want to make spaghetti sauce. So then you might want to go down a Roma path. Try to look it up, try to figure out, do a little research. There's so many resources out on the internet. YouTube, Google, even Pinterest, you know, there's so many resources. Even TikTok now, friends. I mean, truly, I swear, it feels like there's always all these cool life hacks and just different things. So there's so much knowledge out there. Do your own research. Figure out what it is that you really want your tomatoes, the purpose you want your tomatoes to serve, and then go from there. And so, like I said, these are my three categories. This is how we broke it down. This is why we're planting these varieties that we're planting, and that's just this year. As you can see, we really didn't include any green or yellow tomatoes just because that's not something to our taste. We're not crazy about tomatoes. I do like a good fried green tomato every now and then, but not enough for us to grow and invest a lot of garden space into. And so it's something maybe in the future I would like to be able to offer at least to the farmers markets and things, but this will be my first year actually selling. So I'm just sticking with at least the things that we like, so that way if nobody buys anything, I can just eat it myself. So, like I said, always have a plan B. So I hope this helps you try to figure out your tomatoes. I'm hoping to do this with a few other different varieties, especially our beans and our peppers, because there's just so many options and each one has a good purpose, and so I want to be able to do that with these as well. So this is all that I have for you today. I really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Every Monday we're talking about gardening, but I think we're going to be just keep talking about gardening more and more as the season progresses because there's so much to cover, so much to do. But for right now, Mondays, every Monday you can count on a gardening post. Wednesdays is Hens Day, so we talk about chickens and poultry care. And on Fridays is for fixins, and that's where we fix a really good meal and share the recipe with you guys. So I hope you come join us. I hope you come grow with us. You can find our website at www.thankfulrootsdalrymplefarms.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, all at the handle name of Thankful Roots. Again, my name is Becky. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time.